So I'm sitting here still trying to process everything that happened in the last 48 hours, and I honestly don't even know where to begin. I guess I should start from the beginning. I met Tiago at this international street food festival downtown about 8 months ago. I was there with my roommate Bridget trying all these different foods, and he was working at this stand selling these amazing pastries from his home country. I won't say which country to keep this somewhat anonymous, but it's in South America. He had this really charming accent, and TBH I thought he was super cute right away. We started talking while I was waiting for my order, and he ended up giving me an extra pastry on the house with his number written on the napkin, literally like something out of a movie. I couldn't even. We texted for a few days and then started dating. At first, everything was amazing. He was so attentive and sweet, always complimenting me and wanting to spend time together. He'd tell me about his culture and how things were different where he came from. He spoke English really well, but with an accent that I found really attractive. After about a month of dating, he started staying over at my place more and more. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment that I'm pretty proud of because I've been supporting myself completely since I was 20. I work in office administration, which isn't my dream job or anything. I've always been upfront with Tiago about my situation. Like I told him early on, I have plans. I'm not going to spend my whole life working where I am now. I just don't come from a family where everything is given. So anyway, after a couple months of dating, Tiago was basically living at my place full-time. It happened so gradually that I didn't really question it. Like one day he just had all his stuff there and wasn't going home anymore. At the time, I was actually happy about it because I really liked him and thought we were building something real together. The first red flag that I completely ignored LMAO was that he never offered to contribute to rent or utilities. When I finally brought it up around the 3-month mark, he said, "I still have no stable income. You know how hard it is with a visa." Which I understood. I really did. Immigration is complicated, and I wanted to be supportive. But then I started noticing little comments he would make. At first, they were subtle. "You swear a lot. Women from my country don't talk like that. The way you dress is very American. You're so loud when you laugh." I didn't think much of them at the time. Just cultural differences, right? But they started getting more frequent and more critical. He'd say things like, "You wouldn't survive with us back home. Women there know when to be quiet." Or he'd make faces when I talked during dinner with his friends. Meanwhile, our financial situation wasn't improving. He picked up occasional gigs doing food delivery, but most days he'd just sit at my desk playing games on my laptop while I was at work. When I'd come home tired after a 9-hour day, he'd be there asking what was for dinner. And somehow I just made dinner. Looking back, I can't believe I let things get so unbalanced. One night about a week ago, I finally said something like, "I'm getting kind of tired of carrying all the expenses by myself." And OMG, you guys, his reaction was wild. He immediately got all defensive and said, "So you just don't trust me? I thought we were building something together and you're counting pennies like a shopkeeper." I felt so guilty after that conversation, like I was the bad guy for even bringing it up. He didn't speak to me for 2 days. And I actually apologized to him. Seriously, what was wrong with me? Wrong. Fast forward to this past weekend. Tiago told me his parents were in town visiting for a few days, and he wanted to have them over for dinner. I was actually excited to meet them, but then he started giving me all these instructions. "Please don't joke too loudly. Don't be rude. Be polite and respectful." My mother is very traditional. I spent the entire day cleaning the apartment, cooking 3 different dishes, including something from his country that took me forever to figure out, and generally stressing about making a good impression. By the time they arrived at 7 p.m., I was exhausted but putting on my best smile. His parents were polite. That's the best word I can use. They smiled and nodded at me, but something felt off from the moment they walked in. Almost immediately, they started speaking to Tiago in their language. And not just for a quick exchange. They spoke their language for like 80% of the evening. Even when sitting across from me at the dinner table, I had spent hours preparing. I tried to stay positive and engaged, smiling and nodding along like an idiot while understanding absolutely nothing. Tiago would occasionally translate something for me, but it was always vague, like, "Oh, they're just talking about our cousin's new baby," or "They're discussing some family business." Halfway through dinner, I realized I had forgotten to get cream and lemons for the dessert I had planned. I told Tiago I needed to run to the corner store real quick and would be right back. They all nodded and continued their conversation as I grabbed my keys and left. When I returned about 15 minutes later, they seemed to switch topics abruptly. The rest of the evening went the same way. Me trying too hard, them speaking their language, Tiago being weirdly different around his parents. They left around 11 p.m., and I was so drained I just went straight to bed. The next morning I was making coffee when I suddenly remembered something. A year and a half ago, my laptop and some jewelry were stolen from my apartment during a break-in. After that, I installed 2 small security cameras, one in the living room facing the front door, and one in the kitchen. They're not hidden or anything, they're just regular small cameras on shelves that I got from Amazon. I don't check them regularly anymore, they're just there for peace of mind. But standing there in my kitchen, I had this sudden thought. I could actually hear what they were saying while I was at the store. At first I felt weird about it, like maybe this was an invasion of privacy, but then I remembered that 1, it's my apartment. 2, the cameras aren't hidden. And 3, they were literally sitting in my home talking about something while I wasn't there. So I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security app. I found the footage from last night around 8:30 p.m. when I had gone to the store. At first, it was just more of the same, them talking in their language while eating my food in my apartment. But then about 2 minutes after I left, the conversation shifted. I could tell from their body language and tone that something had changed. I couldn't understand a word they were saying, but I could feel the mood change through the screen. His mother was speaking more animatedly, gesturing toward the kitchen where I had been cooking all day. His father was nodding and occasionally laughing. And Tiago was smiling and nodding along with whatever they were saying. I didn't know what to do with this footage since I couldn't understand them anyway. But then I remembered this online service that can transcribe and translate audio. I've used it before for work stuff, so I downloaded the clip and uploaded it. About an hour later, I had a transcript in English, and guys, I wish I had never translated it. His mother had said, "She's not very pretty, but she cleans up after you well." She laughed and added, "Well, she knows her place at least." His father replied, "She's like a free housekeeper. Smart choice, son." And Tiago, the man I've been supporting, cooking for, cleaning up after for months, he laughed and said, "She's useful. The apartment is always clean. Food is always ready. American girls are so easy to manipulate. Just make them feel bad about asking for anything, and they'll give you everything." There was more, much worse. But I can't even type it out without feeling sick all over again. They mocked my appearance, my job, my apartment, even the food I had spent all day preparing, all while eating at my table in my home. The most painful part was that throughout their entire conversation, there wasn't a single moment where Tiago defended me. Not once did he say, "Don't talk about her like that," or "I actually care about her." Instead, he participated. He laughed. I sat there staring at my phone screen for what felt like hours. My mind kept replaying all those little critical comments he had made over the months, all the times he had made me feel like I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to the women from his culture. It all made sense now. He never respected me. I was just convenient. He's still asleep in my bed as I type this. He doesn't know that I know. I'm sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where his family laughed at me trying to figure out what to do next. I know I need to end this. I know I need to get him out of my apartment, but part of me wants to confront him with what I heard. I want to see his face when he realizes I understood every awful word they said. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. A woman who apparently spent 8 months being someone's free housekeeper while thinking she was in a relationship. I feel so stupid. Update. He just woke up and asked what I'm doing. I said I'm just checking emails. He kissed the top of my head and is now in the shower. I think I'm going to start packing his things while he's in there. I don't want him in my home another night. First update. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post. I honestly didn't expect so many responses, and I read every single one while hiding in the bathroom yesterday morning. So, a lot has happened in the last 36 hours. I'm typing this from my friend Bridget's couch at like 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep, and I needed to update you guys on everything. Where I left off yesterday, Tiago was in the shower, and I had just discovered what he and his parents said about me when I went to the store. I was sitting there feeling weirdly calm, like when you're so angry that you go completely quiet inside. That feeling. When I heard the shower turn off, I put my phone down and went straight to the bedroom. I pulled out 2 black garbage bags from under the sink and just started packing his stuff. Not neatly or anything. I was just shoving clothes, shoes, his stupid gaming headset, everything into these bags. There wasn't even that much because he came into my life with basically nothing. I found the little box where I kept photos of us together. Ones from that food truck festival where we met, a beach day from last summer, stuff like that. I ripped them all in half and threw them in with his clothes. I was in the middle of emptying his drawer when he walked in with just a towel around his waist. He stopped dead when he saw the bags, the clothes everywhere, and the look on my face. At first, he seemed confused, asking what was I doing? Was something wrong? His voice had this nervous edge that I'd never heard before. When I didn't answer right away, he tried to touch my arm, and I moved away so fast I knocked over the lamp on my nightstand. It didn't break, but the shade got dented. That's when I told him. I said I knew exactly what he and his parents said about me while I was at the store. I told him I had the footage from my security camera, that I had it translated, and that I knew he called me his personal housekeeper to his parents. You guys, the way his face changed. First there was this split second of shock, then instant denial. He tried to say I must have misunderstood the translation, that I didn't understand the cultural context, that they were just joking. When he realized I wasn't buying it, he switched tactics completely. He got angry and started yelling about how I was spying on him, how I invaded his privacy by recording his private conversation with his parents. Like, in my own home? On cameras that were visibly mounted on the wall? That have been there since before I even met him? I was still weirdly calm, just continuing to pack his stuff while he ranted. That seemed to make him even angrier. He grabbed my wrist hard and pulled me away from the bags, saying I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that this was why women from his country were better. They didn't act hysterical over nothing. That's when I lost my calm. I yanked my arm back so hard that his nails scraped my skin. I shoved him away from me and told him to get out of my apartment. I said he had 20 minutes to get dressed, take his stuff, and leave, or I was calling the police. He called me a crazy bitch and said I'd be nothing without him. Then came the part that actually made me laugh. He said I was throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing. A man who mocked me to his parents, who contributed nothing, who treated me like a servant. I told him that was rich coming from someone who'd been living off me for months. I reminded him that everything he'd been enjoying was actually mine. My apartment, my food, my Netflix, my everything. I told him he was a parasite, not a boyfriend. That hit a nerve. He got all red in the face, and for a second I thought he might hit me. Instead, he grabbed the bags I'd packed, stormed into the bathroom to get dressed, and came out a few minutes later fully clothed but still seething. As he was leaving, he kept trying to have the last word, saying I'd regret this, that I'd call him crying in a few days, begging him to come back. He said no one else would put up with me. I just opened the door wider and pointed out. The last thing he did before leaving was knock over the little table by the door, sending my keys and mail flying across the floor. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard that my neighbor across the hall opened their door to check if everything was okay. After he left, I just sat on the floor of my living room for like an hour. My wrist had these red marks where he grabbed me and they were starting to bruise. That was when it really hit me, how bad things had gotten, how I'd let someone treat me that way for months. I cried for a while. Not even sad tears, really. More like relief, mixed with anger. Then I kicked into practical mode. I texted my friend Bridget and gave her a quick rundown of what happened. She immediately offered to come over, but I needed some time alone first. I went around the apartment gathering anything Tiago might have left behind, found his spare phone charger, a couple of books, and a jacket in the closet. I put them all in another bag by the door. Then I called a locksmith. It cost me $275 for an emergency Sunday service call, but by 6 p.m. I had new locks on my door. Worth every penny TBH. Around 8 p.m. the texts started. First, it was just one. You're making a big mistake. I didn't respond. Then, I left my charger and some other things. I need to come get them. Then, are you seriously ignoring me? After everything I've done for you? Everything he's done for me. I almost threw my phone across the room. By 10 p.m. the tone had shifted. I'm sorry if you misunderstood what we were saying. It's a cultural thing. You wouldn't understand. Then, can we please just talk about this? You're overreacting. Shortly after, Bridget came over with wine and takeout. She sat with me while I showed her the video and the translation. She was livid. Like, I had to talk her down from going to find Tiago herself. She stayed until midnight, helping me delete photos of him from my phone and untagging myself from posts with him on Instagram. This morning, Monday, I woke up to 17 missed calls and about 30 texts from Tiago. They ranged from angry, you'll regret this, to apologetic, I'm sorry, please let's talk, to manipulative. I have nowhere to go, you know my situation. I blocked his number. Then I remembered he could still contact me on Instagram and WhatsApp, so I blocked him there too. Then Facebook. Then even LinkedIn just to be safe. I called in sick to work because my wrist was sore and I honestly couldn't face people yet. My boss was understanding. She just said to take the day and feel better. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole and, surprise, it was Tiago. I didn't answer. He kept knocking, then started calling my name through the door. I stayed completely silent, just sitting on my couch watching him through the peephole like some weird reversed stalker situation. After about 10 minutes, he left. I texted Bridget again, and she insisted I come stay with her for a few days just to be safe. That's where I am now. I also keep thinking about all the little red flags I ignored over the months. How he never contributed financially, the way he criticized how I talked, dressed, and laughed, how he made me feel guilty for asking for basic fairness, the fact that he never invited me to hang out with his friends without him, how he belittled my career goals. Each one seems so obvious now, but I miss them all because I don't even know. I guess I was just so caught up in the idea of this charming, exotic boyfriend that I didn't want to see the reality. Oh, and one more thing. His cousin, the one he's actually close with, messaged me on Instagram this afternoon. Apparently, Tiago told his entire family that I threw him out because I was mentally unstable and jealous of his culture. His cousin didn't believe him and wanted to know what really happened. I sent her the translated transcript of what they said about me. She was horrified and apologized for her family's behavior. At least one decent person in that crowd. So that's where I am right now. Sleeping on a friend's couch, blocked my boyfriend of 8 months on every platform, and trying to figure out what happens next. I've never had a relationship end this dramatically before. Part of me is scared he'll keep trying to contact me or show up at my work. He knows where I work. Another part is just sad about the whole thing. Not because I miss him, but because I feel so stupid for not seeing this sooner. Bridget thinks I should file a police report about him grabbing my wrist, just to have it on record in case things escalate. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but maybe she's right to be cautious. Actually, do any of you have experience with something like this? How long did it take your ex to stop trying to contact you? Should I be worried about him showing up at my workplace? Am I overreacting to all of this? Anyway, that's my update. Sorry it's so long and messy. My brain is still all over the place trying to process everything. Second update. First off, Thank you so much to everyone who commented on my last post with advice and support. You guys were right about so many things, especially about being careful with Tiago and documenting everything. So after spending 3 nights on Bridget's couch, I was starting to feel a little more stable. The bruises on my wrist had faded to this gross yellowish color, but didn't hurt anymore. I hadn't heard from Tiago since blocking him everywhere, and I was finally feeling like maybe the worst was behind me. I even went back to work on Wednesday, and my coworkers were super cool about me taking a couple days off. Yesterday morning, Saturday, I woke up early and decided it was time to go back to my own apartment. Bridget offered to come with me just to make sure everything was okay, but I told her I'd be fine. I stopped for coffee on the way home, checking my surroundings the whole time like some paranoid spy movie character LMO. When I got back to my place, everything was exactly how I'd left it. I spent the morning deep cleaning, changing sheets, scrubbing the bathroom, rearranging furniture, basically trying to reclaim my space and get rid of any reminders of Tiago. I even burned some sage that my sister gave me last Christmas. Yes, I know it's cliche, but it made me feel better. Around noon, I figured I should check in with my parents. We usually talk on weekends, and I hadn't told them about the breakup yet. My mom and dad live about 40 minutes outside the city in the house where I grew up. I thought about calling, but then decided it might be nice to see them in person. I texted my mom to ask if I could come over for dinner, and she replied with a simple, "Yes, we need to talk." That was weird. My mom is the queen of emojis and exclamation points in texts. A serious, "we need to talk" message is not her style at all. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up, which made me even more anxious. I figured maybe she was just busy cooking or something. I arrived at my parents' house around 4 p.m. As soon as I walked in, I could tell something was off. My mom was sitting stiffly at the kitchen table, not getting up to hug me like she usually does. My dad was standing by the counter, making coffee with his back to me. The tension in the room was so thick I almost turned around and left. I asked what was going on, and my mom just looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. She asked if I was doing okay mentally these days. I was completely confused until she said that Tiago had come to see them yesterday. You guys. He went to my parents' house. Apparently, he showed up unannounced Friday morning looking all polished and put together. He apologized for coming without warning, but said he was worried about me. He told them I'd been acting erratically, that I'd become paranoid and was secretly recording him. He claimed I had thrown him out in a fit of rage, had physically attacked him, and that he was concerned about my mental health. He showed them a scratch on his face that I definitely did not give him, and implied I had done it during our fight. He painted this whole picture of me as an unstable girlfriend who turned violent when he tried to help me. My mom was watching me carefully as she told me all this, clearly trying to gauge my reaction. I could tell she wasn't completely buying his story. She knows me better than that. But she was concerned enough to not immediately dismiss it either. I sat down at the table, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I tried to stay calm as I explained what actually happened, the dinner with his parents, the security footage that had been there since before I met him, what I heard them saying about me, and how he grabbed my wrist when I confronted him. My mom still looked skeptical, not because she didn't believe me, but because the whole situation seemed so bizarre to her. She kept asking if I was sure I hadn't misunderstood the translation, if there might have been some cultural misunderstanding. That's when I pulled out my phone. I still had the video clip saved, along with screenshots of the translation. I handed my phone to my mom and watched her face change as she read through it all. By the time she finished, she looked absolutely furious. Not at me, but at Tiago. My dad, who had been quietly listening this whole time, finally came over to look at my phone too. He's usually pretty chill, but as he read the translation, his face got redder and redder. When he saw the part where Tiago's father called me a free housekeeper and Tiago laughed about it, my dad actually swore, something he rarely does. The atmosphere in the kitchen completely shifted. My mom got up and hugged me, apologizing for doubting me even for a second. She said she should have known better than to listen to that manipulative little weasel, her exact words, which made me laugh despite everything. My dad was quiet in a way that was actually more scary than if he'd been yelling. He just asked what time Tiago usually finished work and where exactly he delivered food. I told him, not really thinking much of it, and then we tried to have a normal dinner. But my dad kept checking his watch and seemed distracted throughout the meal. Around 7 p.m., he suddenly stood up, grabbed his keys, and said he needed to go out for a bit. My mom tried to ask where he was going, but he just said he'd be back soon and left. My mom and I looked at each other, both realizing at the same time what he was probably doing. I immediately tried calling my dad, but he didn't pick up. I started freaking out, imagining him confronting Tiago and things getting out of hand. My mom was worried too, but kept saying that my dad wasn't stupid. He wouldn't do anything that would get him in trouble. We sat there for like 2 hours, repeatedly trying to call him, getting more anxious by the minute. Finally, around 9:30 p.m., we heard his car pull up in the driveway. He walked in looking completely normal, like he'd just gone out for groceries or something. When we both started demanding to know where he'd been, he calmly sat down and said he'd gone to find Tiago at the delivery place where I told him he worked. He waited until Tiago came out after his shift, and then approached him. According to my dad, he kept his cool, though I'm not sure I completely believe that. He told Tiago that he knew everything, that he'd seen the video, read the translations, and knew about Tiago grabbing my wrist. He told him in no uncertain terms to stay away from me and my family. My dad said Tiago tried to defend himself at first, insisting there was a misunderstanding. But when my dad mentioned the specific things that were said on the video, Tiago's face apparently went white. My dad told him that if he ever contacted me or came near our family again, there would be consequences. He didn't elaborate on what those consequences would be, and TBH, I'm not sure I want to know. My dad told him, "You were sitting at our table, eating our food, and then you called my daughter a maid who was only good for cleaning up after you. If you ever speak about her that way again, or if you spread any more lies about her, you'll regret it." According to my dad, Tiago didn't say another word. He just stood there looking shocked as my dad walked away. Part of me wishes I could have seen his face in that moment. When my dad finished telling us what happened, I felt this weird mix of emotions. Relief that someone had stood up for me so fiercely, embarrassment that my parents had to get involved in my relationship drama at age 26, and lingering anxiety about how Tiago might react. I ended up staying the night at my parents' house, mostly because it was late, and I was emotionally drained. This morning at breakfast, my mom suggested I might want to file for a restraining order, especially given Tiago's pattern of escalation, first showing up at my apartment, then going to my parents behind my back. I'm seriously considering it, but the process seems complicated, and I'm not sure if what's happened so far is enough for a judge to grant one. Has anyone gone through this process? What kind of evidence did you need? Oh, and I got a text from Tiago's cousin, the one who messaged me on Instagram before, last night. Apparently, Tiago called his mother after my dad confronted him, and she's furious, not at my dad or me, but at Tiago for embarrassing the family. His cousin also mentioned that Tiago has been crashing on different friends' couches since I kicked him out, and most of them are getting tired of him. He lost his food delivery gig because he kept showing up late, and he's quickly running out of options. I'm going back to my apartment today. Bridget offered to come stay with me for a few days if I'm nervous about being alone, but I think I'll be okay. I've let my building manager know about the situation just in case Tiago tries to get into the building again. Also, random side note, but I've started therapy. Had my first session yesterday morning before going to my parents. My therapist seems great, and she's helping me understand how I ended up in this situation to begin with. Turns out I have some work to do on recognizing red flags earlier and setting better boundaries. I'll update again if anything significant happens, but hopefully this is the beginning of the end of this whole nightmare. Last update. Hey Reddit fam. It's been almost 2 weeks since my last update, and I wasn't planning to post again because I hoped, the whole Tiago saga was finally over. Turns out I was wrong. And yesterday things reached a whole new level of crazy that I still can't fully process. So after my dad confronted Tiago, things were actually pretty quiet for about 10 days. I moved back to my apartment, started getting into a routine again, and was feeling more like myself. I even went on a little shopping spree and bought some new throw pillows and plants to reclaim my space. Small things, but they helped erase the feeling of him being there. My therapist suggested I keep a journal of my feelings about everything that happened, which sounded super cheesy at first, but it's actually been helping. Writing things down makes them feel less overwhelming somehow. I've had 2 more sessions with her, and we've been unpacking why I let so many red flags slide for so long. Turns out I have some stuff to work through about my self-worth. Who knew, Elmao? Anyway, work has been a welcome distraction. My coworkers don't know all the details, but they know I went through a bad breakup, and everyone's been really supportive. Yesterday started like any regular Tuesday. I woke up, did my skincare routine while listening to a podcast, grabbed coffee from the place down the street, and headed to the office. The morning was busy with back-to-back meetings, and I barely had time to check my phone until lunch. When I finally did check it around 1 p.m., I had 3 missed calls from an unknown number and a voicemail. I stepped into the break room to listen to it, and as soon as I heard the voice, my stomach dropped. It was Tiago, sounding not right. His words were slightly slurred, and he kept switching between English and his native language. From what I could understand, he was saying he needed to talk to me, that everything was falling apart, and that I owed him a conversation. I immediately deleted the voicemail and blocked the number, then texted Bridget to let her know he'd found a way to contact me again. She suggested I tell my office security just as a precaution, which seemed like overkill at the time, but I decided to stop by the front desk anyway. Our building has 2 security guards. This older guy named Ron, who's been there forever, and a younger woman named Alexis, who started a few months ago. I caught them between shifts and briefly explained that my ex might try to contact me at work and that I didn't want to see him. They were super understanding and said they'd keep an eye out, which made me feel a bit better. I went back to my desk and tried to focus on work, but I kept checking the time and glancing toward the elevator. By 4 p.m., I had convinced myself I was being paranoid. I mean, he'd left a weird voicemail, but that didn't mean he was actually going to show up, right? Around 4:30 p.m., I was in a small meeting with my team in one of the glass-walled conference rooms near the front of the office. We were discussing some upcoming project when I saw movement by the reception area. I glanced up, and there he was, Tiago talking animatedly to Alexis at the front desk. I quickly told my team I needed to step out and texted Ron, who I knew was in the break room, to come to reception ASAP. I ducked behind a column, trying to decide what to do. While I was still deciding, I heard his voice get louder. He was trying to move past Alexis, saying he just needed to talk to me for 5 minutes, that I was being childish by ignoring him. That's when Ron appeared, and thank God he did. Ron's this tall, broad-shouldered guy who used to be in the military, and he immediately positioned himself in front of Tiago, who took a step back. I couldn't hear everything they were saying, but I saw Ron pointing toward the door, his stance making it clear this wasn't a negotiation. For a second, I thought Tiago might actually leave. He took a few steps back, still arguing, but less forcefully. Then, because the universe apparently decided I hadn't been through enough drama yet, Marcus chose that exact moment to walk by me and ask if everything was okay. Tiago's head snapped in our direction, and when he saw me standing there with another guy, his whole demeanor changed. His face got this scary, intense look, and he suddenly shoved past Ron, heading straight for us. Ron caught up to him in seconds, grabbing his arm to stop him. But Tiago was like a completely different person from the charming guy I met at the food festival. He was yelling now, loud enough for the entire office to hear, about how I'd ruined his life, how I'd turned everyone against him, how I was already moving on with this guy, meaning Marcus, who looked completely bewildered. People were coming out of meeting rooms and standing up from their desks to see what was happening. I was frozen in place, mortified and scared all at once. Marcus stepped slightly in front of me, which was nice but also made Tiago even angrier. Tiago was still trying to get to me, with Ron blocking his way, when he started saying the most horrible things. He called me a manipulative bitch who'd tricked him, said I'd been secretly recording him to ruin his life, that I'd attacked him and thrown him out on the street. Then he switched tactics completely, his voice breaking as he said he loved me, that he needed me, that he had nowhere to go. He started crying, actual tears streaming down his face, begging me to just talk to him, to give him another chance. Alexis had called building security, and 2 more guards showed up just as Tiago made one final lunge toward me, breaking free from Ron momentarily. Marcus instinctively put his arm out to stop him, and Tiago actually took a swing at him, missing by inches. The security guards grabbed him immediately, one on each arm, and started physically removing him from the building while he continued yelling, alternating between insults and pleas. As they dragged him toward the elevator, he looked over his shoulder at me one last time and shouted that I'd regret this, that this wasn't over. Then my boss appeared beside me and quietly suggested I take the rest of the day off. She walked me to my desk, waited while I gathered my things, and then had Ron escort me to my car just to be safe. The whole time, I felt like I was moving through a fog, like this couldn't possibly be my actual life. I called Bridget from the parking garage, shaking so much I could barely hold my phone. She met me at my apartment 30 minutes later with takeout. I told her everything while we sat on my couch, and she stayed over again last night, sleeping in my bedroom while I took the couch because I was too wired to sleep anyway. This morning, I woke up to a text from my boss saying to take today off too, and that HR wanted to meet with me tomorrow to discuss implementing some additional security measures. Marcus also texted to check if I was okay, which was really decent of him considering he almost got punched by my crazy ex. I decided to call the police and file a report, something I probably should have done when Tiago first grabbed my wrist. The officer who took my statement was understanding. She said that while his behavior definitely warranted concern, they couldn't arrest him just for showing up at my workplace and making a scene. But she did help me start the process for a restraining order, which I'm following through with today. I also got another message from Tiago's cousin. Apparently, after the scene at my office, Tiago went on some kind of bender, posting a bunch of cryptic, angry stuff on his Instagram stories about betrayal and revenge. He blocked me, but mutual friends screenshot everything. His cousin is genuinely worried about his mental state and apologized again for what her family did. His cousin said his parents have finally intervened. They booked him a one-way ticket back to their country that leaves tomorrow. They've apparently told him he has no choice. They're cutting him off completely if he doesn't come home. His cousin thinks he'll actually go because he's running out of friends to crash with and has no money left. I've triple-checked that my doors and windows are locked, and Bridget is staying another night just to be safe. So that's where things stand right now. I'm still processing everything, still a little on edge, but also feeling more certain than ever that I made the right choice in ending things. If his cousin confirms he actually gets on that plane tomorrow, I'll finally be able to breathe easier. Thank you to everyone who's followed this whole saga and offered advice and support along the way. Your comments helped me stay strong when I was doubting myself. I'll post one final update if anything significant happens with the restraining order, or if I get confirmation that he's left the country. But hopefully this really is the end of the Tiago chapter of my life.